to put out an extension. I don't know. It sounds like maybe she did, but we expect
Okay,
it to come out tomorrow
trustees.
because it expires tomorrow.
We are live. We are recording. Phone lines are open. You are good to go.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Welcome everyone to the regular town trustee meeting of February 14th. And I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the Republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Arlene, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure. So John Aldred.
Here.
Francis Bach.
Here.
David Cataletto.
Here.
Ben Dollinger.
Here.
Tim Garneau.
Here.
Jim Grimes.
Arlene, I believe he's here. He's just signing in.
Great, thank you. I'll note that. Susan McGraw-Keeber. Mike Martinson. And Bill Taylor.
Here.
Great, I'll check on Susan, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Excuse me. Move on to public comment. We were expecting Jim Walker. I don't.
Yeah, actually, Francis, I don't think Jim's going to be calling in. This is really a simple renewal. It's the same project that we've renewed for, I think, the last 6 years.
Okay, can we put it off till Lazy Point?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I think Matt, who do we have in the wings?
Everybody is signed in. Everybody's in.
Okay.
Mark is
Mark there? He is. Hi,
Yes.
Mark.
Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Great. Good. How are you, Francis?
I'm good.
Mark is kind of here to answer, if anybody has any questions about the application that 3 Mile Harbor Marina put in for additional finger piers. I don't know if you want to do that now, Francis, or do Dan first.
We can do. Let's do Mark's and then go to Dan after that.
Yeah, the Mark. That's pretty clear cut. I haven't seen anybody raise an objection to it. No.
Well, the application is, just so everybody knows, it's for 12 additional finger piers to be installed in 3 Mile Harbor Marina, which would complete the finger piers for the whole marina. If you recall, in 2018, we granted a permit for some bulkhead work and the construction of 3 finger piers and some dredging associated with the bulkhead work. And that permit is over, and we should close it out, I guess. And then, so they've applied now for 12 additional finger piers, as I said. And then if this is approved, Mark and I spoke, and the idea was to install the finger piers, get them on a survey, and then for next year, 2023, apply for a 10-year maintenance permit, similar to what we approved for Harbor Marina recently. So I think that covers what we're considering here.
John, if you're looking for input from the board, I looked this over and I have a pretty good understanding of what it is, I think, and I don't have a problem with it.
Well, I'll make a motion then that we approve this application for a permit for these 12 finger piers.
All right, well, I'll second that motion if this moves things along.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? How's that, Mark?
That was easy. That's a lot easier than going out in the cold all day. Boy, oh boy.
Yeah, really.
It looks like it's gonna warm up in a day or two.
I hope so. Well, gentlemen, no ladies there, I don't believe, but enjoy your Valentine's Day and thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks.
Okay, so next, I put this under report of the clerk because I wasn't sure where else to put it. Some things have developed somewhat quickly regarding Seaview, and we had a meeting with Dan. And Dan, would you like to explain what we're looking at?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. Hope you're all going to be on here only for a short time so you can get to your loved ones. We're not going until tomorrow night, so. The Seaview case is moving forward in two ways in terms of getting better definition as to what does the express easement mean in terms of the right of the community, commercial and recreational fishermen to use that land. What's achieved the most notoriety at the moment is the contempt hearing, wherein the property owners have moved for contempt, claiming that the town failed to follow through with the order. That hearing wrapped up this week, with the exception of submissions from the attorneys after the fact. I would expect that whatever this judge decides on that, and the trustees, although we're named in that, are not involved. They have not tried to hold you in contempt in any way. But there'll probably be an appeal either way. And this town has also filed a lawsuit itself in its parens parente role, saying, look, we speak for everyone, and you can interpret this as prohibiting these people from doing what they've done since the earliest days on the South Shore, which is, of course, using wheeled vehicles to get to the beach and crossing for this beach. And what the town is basically saying is, what the court said was, we do have an express easement. Your efforts to wipe out the easement are not going to pass. But that easement doesn't allow the extent of recreational activities that were permitted within the permit that's were previously issued by the town in cooperation with the trustees, using the trustees' property rights. And the property owners have taken the point of view that no all transit is prohibited by any trucks. There's been comments in the papers that it's not the commercial fishermen that they're concerned about. And the town has brought this action saying, look, this fishing reservation exists and you can't bring this off. The other side has basically, the homeowners have said, wait a minute, town, you've already lost this. You are under the concept of collateral estoppel, the idea that you're collaterally estopped from raising an issue that's already been raised. You don't get a do-over. And the fact that you're going in parens parente doesn't allow you to get around that fact. What we've been discussing is in meetings with Dan Rogers, who represents a number of the commercial fishermen, with some of the recreational fishermen, including Rick Drew, a former member of the trustees, is commencing an action to get at this exactly. And that's what the resolution in front of you is about. In a perfect world, the homeowners would reach out to protect their own interest and say to the community, look, we don't have a problem with you giving a permit for people with fishing licenses or commercial fishermen to use our property just as this allows. But, we want your help in policing it so that we don't have people doing wheelies or whatever on the beach and sunbathing on a private portion of the beach, the recreational uses, which is what the court talked about. But their attorneys, who are, of course, charged with being advocates, have taken the view, no, there can't be any vehicles. And we don't believe that's what it said. And the town doesn't believe that either. So what's missing, though, perhaps from the town suit is parties who weren't part of the prior suit. There is no collateral estoppel against the fishermen. They weren't part of the suit. And it's their rights that are not being, that are potentially being interfered with here. It's also your rights because you were created to support that fishing community as part of the economy. And it's your property. And the court confirmed that your property right exists. The fishing reservation has been preserved. So what we would like is your authority to take the representation that I'm already providing for you in the Seaview case further to look at either intervening in the town's case on behalf of these fishermen and women and on behalf of the others. And frankly, we are thinking that the proper way to go is a class action case. There are 25,000 or so residents in your town, and every one of them has a right to use that nexus. If you look at it in a small class, you have 1,802 people with fishing licenses who are basically being deprived of a right that they have to use those fishing licenses on property that was expressly reserved for fishing. We respectfully disagree with the comments about wheeled vehicles. Bill Taylor in particular has been extremely helpful in tracking down historical record. Just the other day, he sent me a newspaper article from the publication was called The Eagle. I don't know if that was the Brooklyn Eagle or if that's Eagle.
It's the Brooklyn Eagle.
Is the Brooklyn Eagle?
I think so.
I thought so. Of taking in, of all wheeled carts with horses pulling carts of 6 tons of cod. Safe to say that wasn't carried by hand. It's always been by wheeled vehicles. And we don't believe that it's a legal issue about whether or not the latest technology is prohibited simply because there were no automobiles being used in 1882 at the time of the Express Reservation. There certainly were horses which have their own environmental issues, if you will, significantly greater than cars and trucks. We think that, although it would be interesting for a parade of horses going through there, I suppose, we think that the trustees are within their fiduciary obligations to continue to take the legal action related to the speech that it has, including either joining the town suit or bringing in another action, and working with them, the town, and hopefully the landowners to create a permit system that reflects what the Express Reservation specifically said, and protecting this important industry for the town.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I just have a question about how tied to a fishing license is this way of looking at it. Or I know you have to have a license to commercially fish, but there's what's called a fishing registry that you're supposed to have to catch fish recreationally.
That's pretty recent, John. And the language in the deed says, basically says all the inhabitants of the town of East Hampton have a right to fish on this property.
That's correct, Bill. That's what we think it is. We think that we want to present it to a court, John, in a way that asks those questions, if you will. We think the first class is the class of everyone in town, because if you don't currently have a license, you certainly can get one. And if you're not on the registry, you certainly can join it. And the second class are those who are actively already involved. If you narrow it down, we have in particular people who are using this for a living, who were blocked by this current order from the court. in terms of the interpretation of the second department's decision, who are having their livings currently impacted. But anyone who wants to recreationally fish and who's on that registry and therefore otherwise has a legal right to use the property by satisfying the property right and any registry or New York State licensing requirements or local licensing requirements is also being impacted. But we believe the largest class is exactly what Bill said, that the reservation is on behalf of the trustees, which is on behalf of the residents of the town of East Hampton. And the fact that you don't currently on the registry or currently fishing recreationally or commercially doesn't mean that you don't have a property right that is being usurped by the current explanations of that decision.
Hey, Dan, Chris Carrillo, how you doing?
Good, Chris, how are you?
Good. If I recall correctly, the language was also fishing and fishing-related activities, which could, we can discuss strategy down the road or an executive session. But when I think of fishing-related activities in 1882, we're talking entire families down the beach, luncheoning, being there for the day while they fish. So perhaps the scope's even broader than just fishing.
Yeah. The language in the reservation says that you're allowed to follow their practices as we're done southerly and westerly of here, which is like West Ham, Wainscott base, and the Historical Society has quite a collection of documentation about all the fishing activities that went on. People built shanties down there. People went whaling. It was a whole town issue back in 1880. But I think we're on good. I think I read the thing today. It's really good.
If you, I think that Bill's right, Chris. And also, if you think about it in terms of the largest scale operation that went on prior to 1882 and therefore is included in the reservation, is when a whale came on that beach and the operations to disassemble and cook a whale. It did not happen in a few minutes, or it was quite the manufacturing operation. Obviously, most of that went on in Sag Harbor, but not all of it. There's evidence that it also went on these beaches traditionally. Even without that large scale, when you think about what it meant for a family, supporting a fishing that was done from the beach as opposed to out on ships and things, you had to go down there and take care of it. And there's evidence that shanties were built. There was evidence that they made their meals there that all supported that infrastructure. And, even if you look at that in the sort of modern point of view, somebody taking their partner a couple of bags from McDonald's for lunch, you shouldn't have to go to the state park and come in from the other side to do that. That's not what the reservation was about. And the current interpretations do not seem consistent with the tradition, the language of the reservation. The current interpretations that are being promoted by the homeowners are basically of, this is our beach, nobody's allowed to use it, in my opinion. That's not what it says.
Anyone else?
I'm in favor of this. We had, we've been talking about this for a little while now. And, my only comment on this, I would like to see the trustees and or the fishing community move forward independently, not necessarily directly tied to the town's case. And I think we had some discussions about that, Dan, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Dan Rogers has been extremely helpful in, one of the things we want to talk about is where we've reached out to the town. I think Francis made the town attorney aware of the resolution today. We haven't had formal discussions with the town, but we're trying to accomplish what the town is, but frankly, we're not the town. And more importantly, the fishing community is not the town. It's a separate, the individuals are separate legal people, and we want to keep working with them. We think they're not in any way tainted by the prior decision. And the fishing community is not trying to fight over whether or not the reservation exists or not, or whether or not you can do wheelies and pickup trucks on the beach. They're trying to maintain what they've done for hundreds of years. And I think that you are aligned in a way that justifies going separately from the town if that's what we decide to do.
Yeah. But we have options to do both, right?
What I suspect is that if we brought a separate action, it would probably get consolidated. So depending on how it was moving forward and where things stood, courts look for efficiency in that regard. So it might get consolidated anyway, but we can look at both options. And yes, we could potentially do both, Bill.
Hey, Jim, did you want to make the motion or?
I'll make a motion that we adopt this resolution.
Second it?
Can we,
Think we need to read it, don't we? Has everybody had a chance to read it?
I've read it.
I've read it. Yeah.
Francis, if you want to read it for the public.
Yeah. Let's see. Resolution to appoint counsel and authorize legal proceedings. Whereas the trustees of the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton, the trustees, are owners of property in the town of East Hampton, including the express reservation and an 1882 deed granted to Arthur Benson to the inhabitants of the town of East Hampton, the right to land fish boats, nets, to spread the nets on adjacent sands, and care for the fish and material as has been customary on the south shore of the town lying westerly of these conveyed premises, the fishing reservation. And whereas the town, whereas the trustees are currently named defendant in the civil proceeding, the Seaview at Amagansett Limited et al. Versus trustees for the freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton et al. Index number 034714/2009, pending in Suffolk County Supreme Court, confirmed that the fishing reservation in Benson deed created a public easement to use the servient estate for fishing and fishing-related purposes, which right is now threatened by actions of the owners of the servient estate. And whereas the trustees were created and impressed with a fiduciary responsibility to act on behalf of the on behalf of the residents of the town, including commercial and recreational fishing community, which provides an important part of the economy in the town of East Hampton. And whereas the town of East Hampton recently filed a lawsuit on behalf of the fishing community to preserve the fishing reservation, and whereas the trustees support the efforts of the town and wish to align its interests with citizens of the town to preserve their right to use the fishing preserve. Now therefore be it resolved by the trustees and freeholders and commonality of East Hampton that 1, the trustees appoint Daniel A. Spitzer, Esquire, and the law firm Hodgson Russ LLP to represent the trustees and the residents of the town who wish to use the trustees' fishing reservation for commercial or recreational fishing. 2, the trustees authorize the intervention of the town in the town lawsuit and any necessary new proceeding, including any action on behalf of individual residents or any class of residents. 3, authorize the entry into any joint defense or similar agreements to carry out the purposes of this resolution. And 4, this resolution is effective immediately. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Hey,
Aye.
Francis, given the importance of this, should we have a roll call vote?
Sure. Marlene?
Sure. So I'm going to start with John Aldred,
yes.
Francis Bach,
Yes.
David Cataletto,
Yes.
Ben Dollinger,
Yes.
Tim Garneau,
Yes.
Jim Grimes,
Yes.
Mike Martinson, Bill Taylor.
Yes.
And now Susan McGraw-Keeper is absent. Is Mike absent? Okay.
Here's
And who seconded that motion, please?
Tim Garneau.
Very good, thank you. Okay, complete.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Dan, thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Dan.
thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
You all have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Dan.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.
All right. New business. We have new permit application. Oh, we did that one already. East Hampton Village ZBA hearing update. I don't know what that's about.
Okay, what that was is we had a couple of ZBA hearings this past Friday, which our team was not available to attend. Ben Dollinger and I, this is all related to ponds. Ben Dollinger and I met with Bill Hayjack last week, went over the two proposed applications. I think these are two that the trustees are going to have issues that we'd like to articulate. So we sent over letters asking for the record to be held open for a couple of weeks, which I believe they were, and we'll put together some basically the trustees' concerns related to the applications.
Okay. Anything else on that? That's it?
Well, Ben, you got anything to add there?
Not yet. It was just two properties. We're looking at some details and some cuttings that are going to take place. And I think when the time's right, we can all address that. Do we have a timeline for those, Jim?
Well, I mean, they're not going to render that determination for a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I know at the very least on both of these, our request is going to be that the applicants be required to get trustee permits for some of the work that actually would be occurring in Hook Pond. But we also have an interest on the upland portion, because what's going on the upland portion of the property as adjacent property owners certainly affects our asset here. So that's basically what we're looking for, is a little time, put together some notes and some comments on the application, and request the ZBA to include in their determination language that'll protect our interests here.
Will this be something that comes back to us for discussion before these comments are put into the ZBA? And how long is the ZBA willing? How long can they hold the record open for?
Well, typically they'll only hold the record open for 2 weeks. John, I don't think this is something that's that earth-shattering that we need to really discuss. It's a matter of keeping language in there that somebody just doesn't green light a project without considering the trustees' interest here, and perhaps putting some conditions in these permits that reflect our interests. I'd be glad to send over our comments to members of the board here for comment, but I don't think it's going to be anything that anybody's probably going to have an issue with. I mean, it's not a case we're asking for denial on the application.
Just conditions, really.
Just conditions, that's all. And it was conditions, honestly, that very much aligned with the village's interests as well.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Jim. Next, we have the Montauk Friends of Erin St. Patrick's Day Parade. I know Susan's been spearheading this one. What is the date of the parade? Does anybody know?
It's the 27th, I think. It's late in the month.
Okay.
It's usually the week. It's usually the week after St. Patty's Day, I believe.
Are we going to tow the pump out boat?
It is the 27th.
Well, here's the thing. I think Susan circulated some notes, all of us, about possibility using the pump out boat in there. Keep in mind, all of our pump out boats, are presently shrink wrapped and winterized. It's not to say that we can't strip one. My only thing is, this is the boat, after we strip everything off, is going to be sitting there for a couple months to the weather between now and when we put the boats in the water.
And what's the date for dropping the boats in?
Date for dropping the boats in. Usually we're doing it, Ben, the week before Memorial Day.
Oh, wow. Okay. It's late.
Yeah. So it's a while.
Yeah. April.
What's the cost for rewrapping it?
I don't know. Can find that out.
That might be worth it. I think it's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. And I mean,
we've done it before.
Yeah, we've got 2 brand new boats that are good. They're good looking boats. And
yeah, let's do it.
I know the last time we did it, we had some kids in the back of the truck and all that stuff, and it was nice. But Susan can't do this by herself. I think really what she is looking for is some membership participation here. So,
yeah,
Tim, that might be something that you could get involved in.
Who's willing to commit?
Yeah, I've done it a couple of times, in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we have the new that new truck too. So
yeah,
I would help out and drive that or tow the boat. I don't know if I could do the tow in the boat, but
we'll get it there and back. It's not we've done it before. It works out nice. We just
guys, you know what I would like to point out? If we're going to do this and we're going to be towing the boat, the plugs on those trailers and the plug that we have on the truck, the trailers are 5-prong plugs, and the receiver on the trailer is a 4-prong plug. What we probably should do is get those trailers set up so that we actually have taillights and directionals.
Yeah, we'll set it up ahead of time,
as well as brakes on it. Because I've been towing those boats around, and listen, nobody stopped me. But it probably would be better for our insurance company if we had this all functional.
So we'll get everything safe and sound. Are there any insurance requirements or anything?
No, we've got. Listen, I think we're pretty well indemnified there.
We have a parade rider on our policy there.
Well, listen, Arlene could check into that. But the critical thing there is care. And if we're going to have people in the boat, on the boat, in the back of the truck or whatever, and if it's kids, what's very, very important is to have some spotters that walk along with the boat. I've done this a dozen times with everything from the fire department to the Boy Scouts. Safety's everything. And it's so easy when somebody's towing the boat. It's so easy for a kid, especially with candy being tossed out, and that it's so easy for a kid to come out of the crowd and find themselves between the boat and the trailer.
Yep, good points, Jim. Kids love candy on that day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My son's already ready to. He's volunteered to throw candy from the boat. So he wants that.
Yeah, he's got. Did he break his arm?
He did, yeah, but he'll be good by the end of March.
I'm sure he will.
Can use
broke his left arm.
All right. So we have people committing. That's great. Old business, we don't seem to have anything. Committee reports, agriculture.
Yeah, I'll just share my screen here. Bear with me. Let me know when it shows up.
There you go.
All right, there. So South Fork Sea Farmers, we already agreed that we would give a permit for this, and they proposed 3 locations And the DC is looking at their application now, and I spoke to them last week, and they prefer, what they're applying to the DC for is the location closest to the Springs General Store on this map. And the DC just wanted to find out if we were going to issue a permit on it. And I just, they're okay with it being, if you see their closure line, to the left of that closure line is year-round closed waters, and to the right is open waters to shell fishing. They're okay with issuing a permit in closed waters. So I just wanted to make sure the board was comfortable with us issuing a permit and issuing it in this spot for the oyster reef. And then
yeah, John, is where you've got the little icon there, is that where you're proposing it?
the yellow icon is where they're proposing, is their proposed spot for the reef.
Okay.
It's it's in front of one very large, mostly undeveloped property. So it's not really going to interfere with anything. And it's in, as I say, it's in closed water, so people can't harvest in there anyway. So I'd like to make a motion that we issue South Fork Sea Farmers a permit for setting up an oyster reef here. And I would recommend that we issue it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll
Now,
second it, John.
is this a commercial venture, John?
No.
No, it's not a commercial venture. It's for restoration only.
Okay.
And we've issued permits for other restoration projects. So I think.
All right. Now, this is not going to impact, let's say, any hunting spots or any stuff like that along there.
I don't believe it is, no.
I don't think it is either, but I just figured I'd bring
I
that
don't
up.
think it really would matter if there was a blind on the shore there anyway. I don't think they'll be doing anything on the reef during hunting season.
And John, what about, we have a lot of, day tripper, novice, kayak or canoers coming out of the general store area. Do you feel like this is any type of, presents any type of hazard for people paddling on the water there?
I don't think it would. I mean, it is fairly shallow, but it is fairly close. It will be very close to shore.
Mm-hmm.
We can ask them to buoy it off, to put a couple of yellow aquaculture buoys on either side of it. I don't know if that would be, more helpful or an attractant, but I think that's the only thing we could do. No matter where something like this is set up, it's got the potential, for somebody to come close to it, and it is going to be fairly shallow in at low tide. It won't break the water, but it may be close to the surface at low tide.
And John, is going to be parallel to the shore?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be parallel to the shore. I have a picture. I'm not sure how to change this, but I have a picture here of somewhere.
We've discussed this a couple of times. I think this should be fine.
From their application to the DEC of the length of the reef. And I have a picture of, let's see, where is it? This is that's what the reef looks like. So it's 42 inches wide, 20 inches high.
It didn't come up.
Biodegradable. There'll be biodegradable bags in which shells are placed, and the fat oysters will be set on the shells. So this will just be allowed to work its way into the environment over the life of the reef.
Don, can you pull that image up? We just still see the map. We just still see the map.
Hold on a second. It changed?
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
And then I guess this didn't show either. This is the length of the reef in that location and the approximate distance from shore. So it's very close to shore. We can ask in the permit for it to be marked to protect kayakers from running into it in the summer, I think.
Well, at low tide, John, how far below the surface do these things set?
That I really can't answer. The proposed depth of the reef is 20 inches. I don't have.
Yeah, I saw that. It doesn't, I see mean low tide line, but doesn't seem to really say that.
I think that's where how they're proposing to set it up is so that it remains submerged at low tide.
Yeah, but is it remaining submerged to allow enough draft for a kayak?
I would doubt it. If it's 20 inches high, that close to shore, at low tide, I mean, that's fairly shallow.
No, that's kind of what I'm thinking about there.
Yeah, you're probably going to need some markers if it's going to be that shallow.
I guess, we should determine how we want to write our permit now. If you're it's important that a kayak be able to.
Well,
then.
What my concern here is we're talking about issuing a permit with a 10-year span, okay, which it seems has the potential of basically impacting some of the what do you call it, navigational issues. And this is, hey, small kayak, whether it's a kayak, whether it's a little John boat or whatever. I think if there's the opportunity here to put this reef down or out a little farther or do something that maintains the ability to get over it, I think I would like to see that.
Well, that could be problematic. It depends on how deep that area, the part of the creek is as you move out. I mean, if this thing had to move out, now you're getting into more of the navigable part of the creek.
All right. Well, maybe.
How about if we require like a danger buoy in the area, which is a real navigational marker, and it indicates a potential hazard to mariners.
Yeah. Personally, I'd like to have a better understanding of exactly what impact this is going to have on that shoreline and the public's access to it.
Public's access to the shoreline or access?
No, access from the shoreline out. The scenario I worry about on something like this is, hey, somebody's standing there, maybe just not even with a blind, somebody's doing some shooting from the shore. You've got a retriever, a dog there. You get the dog through the ice. You don't have the ability to get your friggin' boat over this friggin' impediment that we're just permitting in here. I wouldn't want this to come back and hit us in the face at some later time.
Anyone else? Want to make a motion, John?
I'm not sure what to make a motion for. I mean, what do we want to tell them they have to do?
Well, I'm not sure because I'm not, it's kind of one of those things that I'd like to have a better understanding of the bottom profile there before I agree to it. That's all.
And then are we sure this is the best location for this project in the creek? Or is that something?
They've been through 3 or 4 locations.
Yeah.
Just make it a requirement that it be placed where it'll be underwater all the time.
I think all 3 locations that they proposed were very similar to this one. And they spoke to us at some length a while ago about this, and their intention here is to have spring school students work on this thing and access it by kayak from the general store. This seemed to be the shortest distance for the students to have to paddle. I don't think the other 2 locations one was around the bend towards Landing Lane, and the other was sort of in between this one and the one near Landing Lane. But all navigable water. You have a mooring field off Landing Lane. You've got a mooring field off Shipyard Lane. So you're going to have kayaks in this general area. The concerns Jim raised are going to be at any one of these sites.
Do we know, are there any duck blind locations
I
near
don't
this
believe it
site?
now. I don't think we have anything. And honestly, I don't think we have anything down there. But that doesn't prohibit somebody from just doing a setup on the shore.
Yeah.
But doesn't the duck blind have to be on the marsh? I mean, if you look at this map is showing, right? I'm assuming. I can't see.
Yes.
There's not much, marsh there. That's pretty much upland right off the water. So I don't think there would be a duck blind.
Yeah, no, hey, John, you're not always, marsh is somewhat immaterial. It's a matter of taking cover, and you've got open water out in front of the place there. So, listen.
But how's it going to interfere with the duck blinds?
Actually, it doesn't interfere with the shooting. But if somebody's shooting with a dog, okay, and you're shooting with the understanding you send a dog out there, okay, and a lot of times, like, hey, this time of year, you got ice, you've got other stuff. All of a sudden there you've got this friggin' underwater jetty that's kind of in the way between you and getting at your dog. And what you thought was something easy, I'll kick my boat out, I'll grab my dog out of the water. Well, all of a sudden you find out that you've got this bar across there. So at the very least, we have to mark these things. And
right.
I'm kind of reluctant to give somebody a 10-year permit for something that if members of the public come up with a reason they really wish this thing wasn't here, how we can remediate that when we've already permitted it out for 10 years.
Well, the prior discussion we had about this, I'm the one who brought up giving a permit for a time frame. I think I was the only one who felt that was something we should do because we own the water, and you don't want to just let somebody do something without saying there's a time frame on this.
Well, no, John, and I think there was a lot of wisdom in your comments there, because it's what this kind of comes down to. It's a little like one of those memorial benches that you see on public property. And then the memorial bench falls in disrepair. Then all of a sudden people are getting cut or hurt on the memorial bench, but there's no real vehicle like permitting vehicle to say, well, the memorial bench's time is up. It's time to get it out of here. I think your idea is a good one. I'm just asking some questions here.
Although, Jim, I have to say that the proposal, their description of it to us and in their permit is not to take this thing out after a period of time. This degrades and becomes part of the natural environment over time.
It becomes a living shore.
Biodegradable materials or natural materials that are compatible with the environment, oyster shell and clam shell. So
hey, listen, hey, John, it's very possible the concerns I'm expressing are absolutely baseless. It's one of those things. I'd probably feel better if I had a diagram that actually had dimensions on it that truly showed something that was representative of the shoreline that they got here, just so I had a better idea of what was going on. Or go down and show me what you want to do and where you want to do it. Because when we had this discussion a while back, I do remember it, and it was somewhat nebulous. It's going to go somewhere. Well, now we know where they would like to do it. Let's make sure that actually works, especially being that it's going to be there for good. I think it's worth spending just a few minutes and taking a walk along the shoreline and, okay, that looks great. Or, geez, do we want to do this? That's all.
Now, John, in reality, if this is successful, it's actually going to grow and expand, correct?
Yeah, it should maintain itself as a reef in theory.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
This is
oyster reef.
Yeah. This is experimental, and I think what they wanted to do is they wanted to put it there where it's convenient for the school kids to be involved. If they were going to, if this works out, and it seems like a viable idea, and it helps with the water quality, they'll be putting them in locations that are, that don't have to be accessible to school children. Yeah. So
what do you guys want to do? Jim, you were asking for more detailed drawings?
Listen, I maybe hey, John, could we do this? Could we just table this till the next meeting? Maybe we can do a little field trip, run over and look at this, and actually, instead of looking at some aerial photo, actually get in and look at the area where this is going.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll get in touch with Bob and set up a time to take a look at it.
John, what are the anticipated dimensions of this reef?
20 inches high, 42 inches wide, and I'm not sure about the length, but it looks like it's about 8 or 10 feet.
It's only 8 or 10 feet long?
By
2 or 3 feet?
It looked longer than that.
The line you showed looked like 100 foot or so.
Yeah.
Did they leave spaces in it?
Well, 8 or 10 feet is way too short, but I don't think it's 100 feet.
I don't know, man.
It's probably.
Hey, John, I'm looking at the trees up in the like sort of upper left-hand side, and each one of those canopies is at least 20 or 30 feet wide. So the line there is more than 10 feet by a lot.
Yes, I
Okay.
that is longer than 10.
And John, That's the comment I'm making here. It's the same friggin' length as a jetty, except it's parallel with the shore. So listen, if we could just get this clarified just a little bit, I'd feel more comfortable about voting on it.
We can email everything out to you tomorrow. There is a whole package. And then if you want to go check out the area.
I'd like to see the package as well. Wrapping my head around it as well. And if you guys, John and Jim, decide that maybe there's some additional language that's needed to protect the public, then happy to work on that as well. But I'd like to look at this as well.
Sounds good.
All right, I'll send out their applications.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, John. I think we're all on board with this. We just want to see a little more information. That's all. But you're right. It does need to be accessible for kids as well. Sounds like it's a big part of it.
All right, let's move on to beaches. So back when in the beginning of COVID, there was concern on how we were going to open the beaches. And so a committee was put together that included the lifeguards, town park, PD, trustees, town board, a group of people. And with the passing of the new marijuana laws, this committee has become concerned with people smoking on the beaches and family areas when, lifeguards are in place. So they're proposing a ban on smoking altogether, similar to what the village has done. The ban would be in place during lifeguarded hours. The town itself is proposing a 500-foot area from each side of the lifeguard stands. Everybody should have gotten a package of maps.
Yeah, I got the maps.
Okay. So we'd like to have a discussion about this proposal and see what the trustees think about it.
My feeling is it's completely unenforceable.
Yeah. I think if we're going to put any distances, it should be the same as dogs and pickup trucks. I mean,
Well, I got to tell you, it's a lot easier, I think, to basically see a dog in violation or a pickup truck in violation. My concern on this is you got lifeguards and their job is basically to keep their eyes on the water. And if we're going to ask those lifeguards to basically monitor violations on the smoking laws on the beach, my concern is you're taking people away from the job that you hired them to do. And beyond observing somebody smoking, they're really not in a position to do anything. I can see where they can call code or call Marine Patrol, but it seems to me to be a very impractical. I understand the idea and I don't disagree with it, but I don't know how you're really gonna enforce this without really making the beach a police state.
I think didn't we go through this with the village, with the smoking ban and the pavilion, and we had this whole discussion about smoking ban on the beach, and I thought we kind of came to a consensus among the board that, okay, within the lifeguarded area where the lifeguards are, okay, but that it can't extend too far.
I just say, hey, listen, the reality is we're not going to be the ones that enforce this law. But I just don't see how you can do it.
Yeah.
If there's no regulation in place, you certainly can't even attempt it. So
Okay, well,
what are we willing to support?
I don't know, what's the, Francis, what do they consider the sort of range for the lifeguard? Is it 1,000 feet,
No,
500
I don't
on
know.
either side?
what we do,
They have some.
what we do with the trucks is we make it the lifeguards are, what part of the beach is considered lifeguard? It depends on how many lifeguard stands they have. It can change a little bit. And I think we used to affect no trucks within 250 feet they put a line up of what's considered the guarded area and what's not considered a guarded area.
Yeah, but now they don't allow now the trucks are not allowed on during lifeguarded hours. Well,
They're allowed on the beach. Yeah, I mean, the trucks aren't allowed on the guarded part of the beach.
right.
They are allowed 250 feet or something outside the lines. So, I mean, if they're gonna enforce something, it should be in relation to what's a lifeguarded beach and what isn't.
I was very unclear about their intents regarding those maps. They just have, that's my first thought, what Bill just brought up.
Confusing.
Sometimes they got one lifeguard stand, sometimes they have 4 or 5.
Well,
The length on the beach, that's a lifeguarded area.
well, I would expect that the areas between the lifeguard stands would be governed under this as no smoking, and what you'd be really looking at is the easternmost and westernmost stand that you'd have,
Yeah.
that you'd basically would have, have a band, whatever it is, whatever it happens to be. If it's 250 feet, 500 feet's quite a ways. I don't know. I would think that the lifeguards aren't responsible for something that's 500 foot either way.
Yeah.
Unless there's an interconnecting lifeguard there, but on the outer edges, I don't know. I think, to me, it would what you would be asking a lot of the lifeguards.
Well, I know the lifeguards do patrol on their, ATVs between beaches on a pretty regular basis in the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't make them lifeguarded beaches, though, I don't think.
Right. The lifeguards put flags 100, 150 feet or so on each side of the stands. And that's sort of their patrolled swim in this area jurisdiction, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, this
Not an exact number, but they place a flag every day.
There's strict regulations, and they do move them based on how many lifeguard stands they have.
Isn't it a bit like the alcohol, open container? There's signs that say you can't do it, but the lifeguards aren't really taking care of that problem. The police patrol the beaches. They go through a few times a day, and the signs are there. So I recommend we have the signs up, and the lifeguards, they're not really enforcing it, but you hope that people follow the law.
I think what I read was somebody's idea was that the lifeguards could sort of act as, be able to go up to somebody and say, listen, there's no smoking here. And also, if it becomes a problem, they could notify the police. So they're kind of deputized, sort of.
Yeah.
It's probably not a good idea.
That's all sounds good in theory until you meet that right person or the wrong person.
Well, the reality is that they do what they can to enforce the rules. And if it goes beyond what they can do, then that's when they have to pick up the phone.
All right.
Someone should ask Johnny Ryan what his opinion is. He's in charge of the lifeguards. He thinks?
Well, he's on the committee.
All right. So what is he saying?
So what does John say?
Well, they're looking for 500 feet.
Yeah.
I agree with Jim. I
John
think
seems to be confident that they can handle this.
I agree with what Jim was saying earlier, as far as maybe going for the 250-foot buffer. I just think 500 is just a little bit too much, in my opinion.
The village is 300.
It should be the same as what it is for the pickup trucks and dogs.
Isn't that 300? The dogs,
might-
300?
It's whatever it is. It's been that way with no complaints for 20 years. It's 250 or 300, something like. It's in
Okay.
the code.
Well, we don't have to make a decision or recommendation here tonight, do we?
Well, they'd like to have an
Hold
idea
on.
of what we think, because the town board's in the middle of a discussion on this.
All right. Well, you know what would be nice is instead of us hearing just from ourselves, is if we had the input of the lifeguards and the interested parties here, because we're speculating right now on their ability, one, to cover the area that's being described on one end, and we're speculating right now on what the hell is the rule with the trucks and the dogs. I don't know.
I think David makes a good point. You know, if we're treating it like the alcohol ban, it's another line on the, the prohibition sign. There's no alcohol, no dogs, whatever it may be, no smoking, that's fine. But putting the impetus on 16-year-old Robbie, the lifeguard, to be looking up and down the beach, not, for all these types of things. And now, Rocco and his cigar.
Well, and especially
looking at the water.
Yeah, and hey, Chris, especially if those rules are not consistent with the drinking, not consistent with the dogs, not consistent with the trucks. I think to me, I think the easiest thing here is you make it all the same, and like you said, one more line on the sign.
And I think the TCOs also maybe do a lap or two on the quads now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they'd be someone who'd be responsible for probably enforcing that. And then what did we do with the village last year? I think that, they proposed the new law and we stood behind them, but that was just 300 feet, right, Francis?
Yeah, their law is pretty much the same as this. It's within the lifeguarded areas during lifeguarded hours, and theirs is 300 feet. So the way I'm reading this is you guys seem to be leaning towards the 250 or maybe a 300, whatever it is now for trucks and dogs, pets.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I agree.
Isn't the way they
It is where I'm leaning.
I agree.
Would there be any interest in holding a special meeting with that committee?
Well, I think, honestly, Francis, I think that would have been, to me, a better way of moving this thing forward would be to have the representation of the lifeguards or whatever come to our meeting, describe what they're proposing, why they're proposing it. And
well, I'm on that committee also, so that's why I was presenting it.
okay, well, I don't see you wearing your Speedo here, so and I didn't realize that.
Look, the reality is this is a reaction to the marijuana law.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Are they treating alcohol the same?
Well, I would think you would treat the smoking, the dogs, and the trucks the same.
The same. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'll bring back to them. That we want to keep it within the same distance, regulated distance for pets and vehicles.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be prudent, to have Johnny Ryan on here or have a special meeting, kind of hash this out. My gut tells me that the goal so far, or the way they have it thus far, is not everything the same. So maybe we could all meet up or have them on the next meeting.
Yes.
Who actually proposed this law? Is it the lifeguards that proposed this?
No, it's this committee.
Yeah.
Who was on the committee?
Let's see. Mike Sarlo, me, John, the head of Parks and Recreation.
Rooney.
Yeah, John Rooney. David Lease. John Ryan, a couple of other people who, so, no, they're all town employees.
Okay.
Is it because of complaints, Francis?
No, it's because they don't want to have, everybody sitting around smoking joints around in the family beaches, during.
Pretty sure.
Right now, there's nothing to
Why they
prevent
make
that.
it
It's
legal?
all legal. And you can't, someone's smoking, they're smoking. Smoking's annoying anyway to those who don't smoke.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how. Honestly, I don't know that you single out one type of smoking from another. I would think that you just call it smoking, vaping, whatever frig you're doing there.
Well, that's what they're doing.
That's fine.
That's what we're trying to do.
But when you looked at those maps that you sent around, Francis, I thought we were talking about the effects of a nuclear blast.
Yeah.
Who was going to live, who was going to die, who was in that friggin' 10-year friggin'
A lot of colors on those maps.
and all that, man. It was a lot of colors there.
Yeah, well, this was presented to the town board, and apparently the town board was leaning towards the 500-foot buffer.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go to whatever.
This board doesn't have to agree with that.
Well, I think
it seems that we all agree in essence that it's not a bad idea to ban the smoking within the protected areas. So we're discussing how far at this point.
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll bring back that we're looking at 250 to 300.
All right.
Whatever the current code is.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it simple.
I mean, it's not like the smoker is going to bring his tape measure with him when he was walking down the beach to light up his joint, So he's not 300, 500. He's not going to know the difference.
Well, my feeling on stuff like this is you can always start with some redundancy in the dimensional restrictions, and if it doesn't work, well, there's the opportunity to make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
But to give the enforcement requirements where the dimensions are all over the map, I think that itself you're just asking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis.
Let's move on to Georgia. Jim, would you mind taking this while I step away for a few minutes?
Sure, go ahead. Hey,
Thank you.
Arlene, do you have the pictures that I gave you, or are we skipping that?
I'm muted. I don't think I can share the pictures. I'm not technically
Okay.
as good as you.
Okay,
I'm
well,
sorry.
look, you asked me to give you the pictures. I gave you the pictures. I was really relying on you to do that because I don't
I'll
have.
circulate them, Jim.
Okay.
I'll
Hey,
circulate
listen, guys, this isn't that complicated. We got 3 permits from the same permitting agent that came due. The first one is over in Georgia Association, number 1 Association Road. I met with Kelly Rosado a few weeks ago over there, and I got to tell you, it was a pretty impressive day because we walked into the backyard at this house. There were 3 bald eagles sitting in a tree, and instead of leaving, 2 of the eagles started working on the nest, which is in a tree right there, and the other one just sort of hung out. In either case, getting to the matter at hand, the restoration planting that this is now, I believe, in its 3rd year, has filled in rather well. The Phragmites cutting has gone very, very well. You can see a decline in actually the Phragmites population along this shore. They are doing some additional removals in the form of mile a minute and some other invasives. And I firmly recommended renewal of this application, and they are renewing it. The second one is 94 Appoquog. This is over in Georgia Cove, and that one there, has actually filled in very, very well. The original planting was done really kind of haphazard, but nature sort of intervened and the area has filled in very well. There's no evidence of Phragmites there. There's an upland portion of that project, which is more in the village's venue with a I think it was a 75 or 100-foot no-mow zone, which clearly the homeowner seems to be violating. They're treating the whole thing like it was their lawn. And I think Billy Hayjack is going to address that separately. Now, that property is not asking for a renewal. Okay, so this is a closeout on that permit. And we have the same situation on 3 and 7 Cove Hollow Farm Road. That's the property that if you stand down at the access to Georgica Cove in the village there off of Georgica Road and Cove Hollow, it's the house you kind of see off to the right. That again has filled in rather well. What's unfortunate is the homeowner does not seem to have any interest in managing the Phragmites anymore, and so be it. So I would like to make a motion, if it's okay, to close these permits out, close 2 of these permits out, and do a renewal on 1 Association Road.
I make a motion.
And if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to send you the photographs I took over there the day we visited the sites.
So you made a motion, I'll second it. You ready?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Well, thank you. The next thing on the agenda is for Napeag, and that is Lazy Point. I got a call from a member of the public regarding some safety issues related to the Lazy Point launching ramp. I went down there. I met with Jim Bennett last week from Marine Patrol, and yeah, it's a real problem down there. I think it's something that's fairly easily addressed at this time. In the long term, there is plans to replace that launching ramp at some point. I'd like to see it held off until we actually can get Napeag Harbor dredged and get that work done properly, and maybe incorporate the replacement of the ramp into that. But from a remedial standpoint, what I'd like to propose is getting some pricing on adding some riprap stone on both the east and the west side of the ramp, mostly on the east side where there's a significant grade drop off. Regrade the approach to the ramp. Right now, you've got a 4 to 6 inch lip. So if you're backing a boat up, it's a little like jumping the curb. And and there's a hole in the center of the ramp that Jim had filled with some riprap stone last year that I think, honestly, the stone could come out of there. You could basically power wash the ramp so it's less slippery and make a temporary repair at low tide on that blowout. And I think that would put the, and the other thing is to actually add some sand on both sides of the ramp so that there's a little more gradual slope running up to the ramp itself. If I'd like permission from the board to go out and get some pricing on this work, so that maybe we could get this done before the boating season.
Yeah. Is the town going to make a contribution to this?
I'm going to be honest. The town has made the commitments to replace the ramp. I think in an effort of goodwill, I think it would be worthwhile for the trustees, because it is a trustee ramp, to take care of the maintenance issues out of our dime.
All right.
I mean, we can get help from like Steve Lynch and that on some of this stuff, but this is one of those little projects that I think would be better handled by like a private contractor, that you can describe the meets and bounds rather than go to Steve and ask for a favor And then what do you do if it's not quite to the extent that you wanted it? What can you really say?
Yeah. So get the prices and we'll do it.
Okay, well, I'm going to need if we could make a motion to allow me to do that, I'll have that for the next meeting. And,
I'll make a motion.
I wonder if,
eh?
I wonder if as part of this, we could, a couple of years ago, we talked, there's a memorial rock down there.
Yeah, actually, hey, John, I'm really glad you brought that up, because if Arlene had gotten her act together and learned how to put these pictures online, we could have looked at that. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'll work on that next meeting.
Okay, yes, there's the Thomas Lester Memorial Rock, which I got to tell you, it's leaning to one side. My thought was, whoever's standing there, let's pick the rock up. Let's set the rock a little farther up landward of where it's sitting right now. So it's not really a navigational hazard for anybody trying to pull down there, and certainly make the whole presentation to the memorial look a little better. There's a couple pipes and stuff hanging out of the ground that we talked about taking care of at the same time.
We were talking about moving a rock someplace to Northwest Harbor at one point in time.
But that was, yeah, we agreed to that a couple of years ago. It never really happened.
Well, can it stay down at Lazy Point? I think we can make it look better down at Lazy Point than the way it does right now.
I think, yeah, it can stay wherever you want it to stay. It just, I think the thought process then was, it's in the way, it's got to be moved.
It is.
Tom Lester fished out of Northwest. He never fished out of Naptig. It would be a more.
Well, hey, listen, John, you seem to know more about this than I do. How the hell did it end up in Lazy Point?
Because they had just built the ramp. It was a new ramp, and it hadn't been named after anybody. So Tommy died, and they put the rock there.
All right. Well, listen, I'll put the friggin' rock wherever you want. In Jimmy's world, this was a lot simpler if I was just moving the rock a little bit
Well, you got to move it first.
towards the dune.
You still got to pick it up.
Yeah.
So why don't we? I'll make a motion that we agree to do the work, and you'll try and get the prices for us.
I'll get the prices for the next meeting, because this is one of those things I think we can get done. It's not really that big a deal.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Thanks, John.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Anybody
thanks.
opposed?
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys who really depend on that ramp, and they've all expressed, concerns of that it's dangerous. So, I think,
well, listen, the day we were down there, the tide, it was a beautiful, flat, calm day. The tide was way, way out. You could really look at the condition of the ramp. And you know what? It's one of those things. Get down there with a pressure washer, clean off the ramp. It'll take, the growth will be off there for a little while. It'll be a little safer. Fix the frigging gaping hole in the middle of the ramp, and then just get this thing so that you don't break an axle when you're,
Did one of those blocks get dislodged or something? They made that thing.
No, you know what? It's just what happened, Bill? There was like a natural, sort of a typical sort of stress crack in the concrete, and then it started to spall off on either side. So now you gotta hole that's probably a foot wide by maybe a foot and a half, 2 foot long.
So fix it up.
Well, I think it's pretty easy. Just dowel in a patch of some quick set concrete. It is not going to last forever, but you know what? It'll do the job for the time being.
Okay.
All right. Move on. Records and website. David, you going to take that?
Sure. Yeah, we were just talking about adding some more to the website. We were missing on the history aspect from 1702 to 1869, some trustees history. So I went to the library, got some digital, I found that file. So we're going to upload that to the website. And we're going to add under important links, East Hampton Trails Preservation Society. They have some trail maps, and also the East Hampton Town website has some trail maps. We thought we would just have them a little more accessible to people who come and visit our website. And I think that was it.
Okay.
Anybody else have? No.
I like the addition of the trail maps. That'd be very useful to people.
That's what we felt. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, David. Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee, John?
I'm not really prepared to go through this. I thought Susan was going to be here and would have prepared for it. I didn't really prepare for it, so.
Okay, we'll table.
Next meeting.
All right, brings us down to administrative payment of the bills. Optimum, we have $303.52. Van Dyke and Hand, accountants, $720 for payroll tax, W-2s, 1099 prep for the fourth quarter of 2021. Staples, $35.98 for office supplies. Do I have a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we have the financials for the month ending January 31st, 2022.
I
Anybody have a chance to review them?
Yeah, Francis, I haven't looked at them, so.
We'll table those. Anybody have anything else before we say good night?
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night.
A motion
See
to
ya.
close?
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Matt. I'm sorry.
Yes.
We don't have anyone in the wings, do we?
You have 0 callers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
And, okay,
Good night,
thanks, everybody. Have a
Good
great
night. Thanks,
night.
Francis.
Thank you, Matt.
Guys.
You are
Thanks, guys.
welcome.